In early June 2025, Israel launched one of its most striking yet highly precise operations against Hezbollah militants. Just 2 pairs of fighter jets inflicted massive damage. Even though they were operating under difficult conditions and without the advantage of surprise. The strike package consisted of 2 pairs. The first attack was to be carried out by 2 F-16s, followed by a second strike from 2 F-15s. These aircraft differ not just in their designations, but in their weapons, performance, characteristics, and mission plans. Each pair had a different role, but they began the operation together as a single formation, splitting at a clearly defined point. It's worth wondering how an Israeli F-16 pilot mentally prepared for this mission in the minutes before takeoff. The General Electric F-110 engine is already running, but while the aircraft is still on the ground, it remains at idle as a pilot waits for ground crews to complete the final weapons checks. Beneath each fighter hang 2 Rafale Space 2000 guided bombs, 4,000 pounds of high-precision ordnance with immense destructive power. But raw force and standoff range are far from the most important factors. Today's mission will require the pilot to fly dangerously close to the enemy, striking a city while minimizing the risk to civilians. It's worth saying a few words about the exact configuration of the aircraft. The available details point to the use of the F-16I Sufa, simply the best choice for this kind of mission. These single-engine multi-role fighters are well suited to the precision strikes required over Beirut's densely built-up areas. Their exceptional maneuverability allows them to shift quickly between targets and operate effectively even in a crowded airspace. But the key advantage was the efficiency of the F-16I's fuel system, which significantly extends loiter time. That's critical if the operation drags on because civilians need time to evacuate. At last, the final preparations are complete, and the pilot pushes the throttles forward. The engine responds instantly, and the F-16I surges down the runway at Ramat David, lifting off at 165 knots. His wingman follows 10 seconds later. Then the second pair takes off at the same intervals. 4 aircraft are airborne, climbing in a carefully spaced formation. The mission profile demands surgical precision, not only in the fighter's positioning, but in the timing of every phase. The strike list includes just 6 targets in Beirut's southern suburbs and among the hills of southern Lebanon. There were only 6 targets, and the Israeli jets carried enough ordnance for 6 strikes. That suggests command likely had a plan B, with backup targets and room to adapt to unforeseen circumstances. But matching the loadout so tightly to the target count leaves no margin for error. The attack had to be executed flawlessly. A lot could go wrong. The release window was narrow, and most importantly, each fighter would have only a single attack run, one pass that couldn't be aborted, skipped, or delayed. And then something happens that makes Israeli operations truly distinctive from a doctrinal standpoint. 60 minutes before the first bomb falls, Israeli military spokesperson Avikai Adrei begins posting messages on social media. Not through encrypted military channels or diplomatic back channels, but via mainstream social networks and messaging apps popular across the region. In them, he deliberately reveals information about the impending strikes. If an official or military officer from almost any other country did something like this, it could be seen as criminal negligence or even treason. But Adrei, on the contrary, is acting in Israelis' interest. The purpose of these messages is very specific: to minimize risks to civilian non-combatants. The Israeli military doesn't just claim it is fighting only militants, it demonstrates that in practice. The pilots give up the advantage of surprise and put themselves in a more vulnerable position, all so that as many civilians as possible have time to evacuate. That hour before the strike can also be put to use for intelligence gathering. Command understands that militants may try to flee as well, so analysts watch where activity spikes and which areas remain suspiciously quiet. The pilots hold in a waiting area at around 28,000 feet, ready to counter any response while monitoring encrypted tactical frequencies. As for the weapons Israel would use in the operations, the F-16s were equipped with Rafael's Spice 2000 munitions. Their exact price is classified, but it is almost certainly substantial, potentially reaching $150,000 to $200,000 per bomb. A huge sum for a single expendable munition. Yes, but this is a new level of high-tech weaponry, even compared to standard guided bombs. Most guided bombs rely heavily on GPS, spoof the coordinates, and an expensive weapon can miss and detonate uselessly. Spice 2000 uses GPS only at the very first layer. Inside the nose section, two additional guidance systems work together in synergy. An inertial navigation system, INS, uses ring laser gyroscopes, while 3 accelerometers track every movement across 3 dimensions, calculating position based on the fundamental laws of physics. Even if GPS suddenly becomes unavailable, the INS alone can still guide the bomb to within about 30 meters of the target. But the next system is a true engineering masterpiece, electro-optical scene matching. Well in advance, during the operation's detailed planning, operators load high-resolution satellite images of the target area into the weapon. Every building, every street corner, every distinctive feature within a roughly a square kilometer. As the bomb descends, its nose-mounted camera captures 60 frames per second, constantly comparing what it sees to what it has stored. A powerful onboard computer inside the Spice kit runs this processing in real time, while the weapon is falling at around 300 meters per second, allowing it to adjust its trajectory for the most accurate, high-impact strike, but only where it is intended to hit. The allotted hour comes to an end, and the 4 fighters turn east, descending through 20,000 feet before accelerating toward the Lebanese coast. Each aircraft carries either Rafael Sky Shield electronic warfare pods or the ELL-8222 system. Their threat libraries contain the electronic fingerprints of most radar systems in the region. In the mix here is wide. The militants have bought or received from Iran very different systems, from Soviet-era relics to some French sets and even relatively modern Chinese equipment. They are active now. Several fire control radars probe the sky, searching for something to lock onto. But what they pick up are false returns, signals that differ in speed, altitude, and heading. The Israeli fighters confuse the enemy's systems by injecting multiple decoys at once, flooding operators' displays with bogus targets and throwing their whole picture into chaos. Meanwhile, the Israeli pilots continue tracking new threats. Their systems classify incoming radar emissions, identify priorities, and allocate more jamming power to the relevant frequency bands. Then comes a genuinely clever move. All 4 aircraft coordinate their jamming. The formation leader acts as a beacon, broadcasting strong suppression across the main threat frequencies. The other 3 switch their pods to a different mode, generating rapid bursts of jamming that appear and disappear at random. To Lebanese radar operators, it now looks like there are several times more aircraft than there actually are. This dangerous game can't last forever. Soon, the unharmed, elusive F-16Is reach the release point as a pair. The other 2 fighters have already turned onto a different heading, but will get to their strike shortly. And below the F-16s, the Lebanese capital spreads out beneath them. The master arm switches on. The weapon is selected. Release mode is confirmed. Listening targeting pods cue on the first targets. Tension builds. And minutes later, the head pilot releases the first Spice 2000. The F-16 immediately pitches up hard. The pilot doesn't watch the bomb fall. He sprints toward the second target. Its GPS receiver locks onto multiple satellites. Excellent geometry for a precise position fix. The release point was less than 2.5 kilometers from the target, leaving about 43 seconds to impact, enough time to perfect final adjustments. 5 seconds later, the wingman releases his guided bomb onto the next target. So far, the tightly timed plan is unfolding flawlessly. His aim point is an unremarkable 5-story commercial building whose basement, according to Israeli intelligence, contains drone assembly workshops. The bomb's camera scans the scene. The building itself appears slightly warmer than the structures around it. The weapons have been in flight for only 10 to 15 seconds, respectively, but the strike is now inevitable. Meanwhile, The formation leader strikes a Hezbollah logistics node disguised as a shop. The storefront is only a cover. The communications equipment is concealed and protected 3 levels underground. Lebanese electronic warfare units likely employ Russian-supplied systems, fairly effective GPS jammers that can broadcast spoof signals to mislead a guided weapons navigation. The spy's computer immediately detects the discrepancy and prioritizes the INS solution. The corrupted GPS data is discarded, and the bomb stays on course. At around 1,000 feet, the camera switches to a narrow field of view. The algorithm searches for preloaded terrain features, accounting for even minor but persistent details. The weapon locks onto its final approach, and small tail control surfaces deflect to refine the impact with near surgical precision. In general, there are 2 fuse types, an impact fuse for simple surface targets and a delayed action fuse for penetrating hardened structures. All 6 bombs use delayed fuses because they are meant to punch into fortified, often underground, and in any case concealed, nodes of militant activity, then detonate inside to completely destroy them. That's why it's so important for the weapons to penetrate deep before they explode. And that's exactly what happens when a Blue 109 penetrator warhead hits the roof of the target building at roughly 267 meters per second. Its hardened steel casing slices through the roof slab, then the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd floors without detonating. The warhead reaches the ceiling of the basement, and then comes a blast. In a confined space, pressure can't dissipate, so the shockwave and fire cause catastrophic damage. The 2nd bomb hits seconds later, then the 3rd and the 4th. Shockwaves from multiple near-simultaneous blasts meet and merge, amplifying one another. Even without that effect, the destruction is immense. All targets are eliminated. Plumes from the explosions rise into the evening sky, followed by the secondary detonations as militant equipment and weapons cook off. The pilots are already pulling away. Their jamming pods work overtime, projecting false targets behind them as they race back toward the Mediterranean and safety. But the strike isn't over yet. Only half the job has been done. As Beirut's southern suburbs burn, the 2nd pair of Israeli fighters is already closing on its target in southern Lebanon. These are F-15I ROM aircraft, flying at around 30,000 feet. They are the 2nd wave in the attack. Why the F-15? Because of its heavy payload capacity. These jets are tasked with dropping 5,000-pound penetrators. The F-15's Pratt & Whitney F-100 PW-22 engines generate a combined 58,000 pounds of thrust, enough to haul roughly 10,000 pounds of ordnance per aircraft at a very high speed. These fighters use a 2-seat configuration, which is especially useful here. While the pilot focuses on flying, the Weapons System Officer, WSO, manages the APG-70 radar and the Lantern targeting pod. They're less nimble than the F-16, but their reinforced hardpoints are built for the heaviest munitions. Right now, each aircraft is carrying a single GBU-28. The warhead's casing is forged from a single piece of hardened steel alloy, designed to stay intact while punching through up to 6 meters of reinforced concrete, or about 30 meters of earth. Of all Israeli fighters, only the F-15 has the payload capacity and high-altitude performance needed to employ such a weapon effectively. Satellite imagery from the past 6 months shows suspicious construction activity on the slopes of a hill near Al-Khar. Dump trucks arrive loaded and leave empty. Ventilation shafts appear. Heavy electrification follows. It's either a militant command bunker or a major production site, possibly manufacturing weapons, including drones for future attacks on Israel. On board the Israeli F-15, the APG-70 radar renders a target area in a high-resolution terrain mapping mode. In the rear cockpit, the Weapons System Officer coordinates with the 2nd aircraft. Soon, the lead F-15 begins its run. The GBU-28 needs altitude to build maximum speed for a penetrating strike. The jet climbs to 35,000 feet and releases the weapon. At peak, the bomb's speed approaches the speed of sound. The crew releases both with only a minimal interval, hitting the pre-calculated timing precisely. From there, GPS and INS guide the weapons to the target with maximum accuracy. Impact! The first GBU-28 slams into the hillside at roughly 312 meters per second. With that mass and kinetic force, the soil is cut through like butter under a hot knife. Deep inside, the weapon meets a bunker's roof, likely around 2 meters of reinforced concrete. That would stop an ordinary airstrike, but against a GBU-28's energy, it's no barrier. The penetrator breaks through into the structure, and then a brutal explosion follows. About 630 kilograms of explosive detonates with staggering force. 2 seconds later, the second GBU-28 hits several dozen meters to the south, striking another section of the underground complex. The trajectory, detonation timing, and the spacing between impacts are all calculated for maximum effect. Underground, the two blast zones merge, creating a catastrophic pressure differential. This isn't just a fire or an explosion. It's like a mountain-sized sledgehammer striking the hill from the inside. Everything that can burn ignites in every corner of the bunker. Ammunition and fuel stocks ignite, triggering a cascading chain reaction in which secondary blasts tear apart and vaporize everything the bombs didn't directly reach. The hillside erupts like a volcano. The ground heaves upward and then collapses into a crater roughly 60 meters wide. It has to be said, even Israeli intelligence is reportedly stunned by the scale of the aftermath. The calculated explosive yield, powerful as it is, doesn't fully account for destruction on this level. What were the militants hiding in there? We may never know, but it's clear that they were preparing something truly dangerous, something intended to be used against Israeli civilians. Now, that won't happen. After completing standard egress maneuvers, the F-15s also returned safely to base. All 4 Israeli aircraft performed with pinpoint accuracy, completing the mission with maximum effectiveness. And this is despite the fact that the warnings issued to Lebanon's civilian population, which helped save many innocent lives, also inevitably reached the militants. Even so, it didn't prevent the Israeli pilots from accomplishing their objectives. Detailed information about operations like this remains classified and is not made public. For that reason, this video does not claim to be a documentary or an absolutely exact reconstruction. It is a result of careful analysis of open source information about the successful destruction of militant facilities in early June, combined with known performance data on Israeli weapons and aircraft. The goal is to present the most plausible and realistic picture of events that are shaping modern history right now. Details we will only fully learn many years from today. If you like our work and want to stay up to date, subscribe to the channel and don't forget to hit like on this video. That way, you'll see even more of the most impressive military operations of our time.